The Battle of Hastings in 1066 stands as a pivotal moment in English history. It was a clash of kingdoms, a battle for the English throne, and a turning point that shaped the future of England. The story begins with the death of Edward the Confessor, the English king, in January 1066. With no direct heir, a power vacuum formed, leading to three main contenders vying for the English crown. Harold Godwinson, a powerful English nobleman who was crowned king; William, Duke of Normandy, who claimed Edward had promised him the throne; and Harold Hardrada of Norway, a fierce Viking warrior with ambitions of his own. In September 1066, Harold Godwinson had just defeated Harold Hardrada in a brutal battle in the north. His victory was short-lived, however, as he received word that William had crossed the English Channel and landed on the southern coast. Gathering his weary troops, Harold marched south with impressive speed, determined to defend his kingdom. On the morning of October 14th, the two armies faced each other at Senlac Hill, near the town of Hastings. Harold's army, composed mostly of foot soldiers and local militias, took up a strong defensive position on top of the hill, forming a solid shield wall, a wall of interlocked shields that was almost impenetrable to enemy attacks. William's army, on the other hand, was a formidable force of Norman knights, cavalry, archers, and infantry. He had a strategic advantage, using a mix of combat styles, while Harold's forces were predominantly infantry-based. The battle began with Norman archers launching volleys of arrows at the English, but Harold's shield wall held firm. William's first assaults, a combination of infantry and cavalry charges, also failed to break through. The English seemed invincible, and William's men were on the brink of retreat. But then, William employed a clever tactic, a feigned retreat. He ordered his troops to turn and run, pretending to flee in panic. Seeing what they thought was a retreat, sections of Harold's army abandoned their defensive positions to chase after the Normans. At that moment, William's cavalry turned back, cutting down the English who had broken formation. This tactic was repeated multiple times, weakening the shield wall and creating gaps in the English lines. In the midst of the battle, an arrow struck King Harold in the eye, a fatal blow that became one of the most iconic images of the battle. With their king dead, the English forces lost morale, and William's troops pressed the attack, securing a decisive victory. The feigned retreat, which played a critical role in William's victory, was not a spur-of-the-moment decision. It was a well-practiced Norman strategy, used to draw opponents out of strong defensive positions. The events of the battle were immortalized in the Bayeux Tapestry, a 70-meter-long embroidered cloth that tells the story of William's conquest. It's not just a historical document, it's also an artistic masterpiece, filled with hidden messages, symbols, and even a mysterious depiction of a comet, possibly Halley's Comet, which was visible in 1066. The Battle of Hastings was a classic showdown between infantry-based armies and cavalry forces. William's use of mounted knights gave him a mobility and striking power that Harold's foot soldiers couldn't match, especially after the shield wall was broken. Harold's choice to defend the top of Senlac Hill was initially brilliant, as it forced the Normans to charge uphill. However, the open flanks of the hill allowed William's cavalry to circle around and exploit any weaknesses. While the story of Harold's death by an arrow to the eye is widely known, some accounts suggest he may have been cut down by Norman knights after being struck. This ambiguity adds an air of mystery to the final moments of the English king. With Harold dead and his army in retreat, William claimed victory and marched to London, where he was crowned King of England on Christmas Day, 1066. The Norman Conquest brought profound changes to England, reshaping the culture, language, architecture, and social structure. The Anglo-Saxon elite was replaced with Norman nobility, castles sprang up across the landscape, and the feudal system took root. The Battle of Hastings wasn't just the end of an era. It was the beginning of a new chapter, with Norman rule laying the foundations for what would eventually become modern England. The Battle of Hastings is a story of ambition, cunning strategies, and a kingdom changed forever. William's victory was not just a triumph of military tactics. It was a turning point that set the stage for centuries of English history. His title, William the Conqueror, was well-earned, and the echoes of that fateful day in 1066 still resonate in England's identity today.